Hello there and welcome. Tonight we are going to travel through one of the strangest parts of being human. Every single day ends the same way. Your eyes grow heavy, your thoughts begin to wander, your body asks for something it cannot name, and then you slip away into a world you will barely remember. This is sleep. A place where time bends and logic fades, where your mind creates entire universes that vanish by morning, where your body repairs itself in ways you will never see or feel. Right now, as you listen to these words, millions of people across the planet are already dreaming. Their eyes are moving rapidly beneath closed lids, their hearts are beating slower, their brains are washing away the waste of the day, and yet if you ask them what they are doing, they could not answer. They are gone. Travelling through landscapes that do not exist, having conversations with people who are not there, flying without wings, falling without hitting ground. Sleep is the thing we do most often after breathing and eating. You will spend roughly 1/3 of your entire existence asleep. If you live to be 90 years old, 30 of those years will be spent in bed with your eyes closed. 30 years of dreams you will forget. 30 years of repair you will never witness. 30 years of mystery happening inside your own skull. And yet despite all this time, despite centuries of curiosity and decades of science, we still do not fully understand why we sleep at all. Why would nature design us to become unconscious and vulnerable for hours every single night? Why would evolution keep something so risky, so time-consuming, and so universal across nearly every creature with a brain? The answers are still incomplete. We know sleep does many things. It strengthens memory. It steadies emotion. It clears toxins from the brain. It repairs muscles and balances hormones. But none of these explanations feel complete. None of them capture the full mystery of why consciousness must fade every single night. What makes sleep even stranger is how different it looks across the animal kingdom. Some creatures sleep with only half their brain, while the other half stays awake. Some barely sleep at all. Others dream so vividly their bodies twitch and move as if living another life. Some animals can nap while flying thousands of feet above the ocean. Others must lie down for hours in vulnerable positions, trusting that predators will not find them. And then there are humans. We build our lives around sleep. We create beds and blankets and routines. We dim lights and quiet sounds. We have invented entire industries around pillows and mattresses and sleeping pills. We have words for people who sleep too much and words for people who cannot sleep at all. We have sayings about sleep. We have songs about sleep. We have entire sciences dedicated to studying what happens when we close our eyes. Tonight we are going to explore 100 facts about this mysterious process. Some will be simple, others will be strange. A few might even change the way you think about rest, but all of them will remind you of one truth. Sleep is not emptiness. It is not nothing. It is a hidden world that we visit every single night. A place where the impossible becomes normal and where your body does its most important work. So let yourself relax, let your breathing slow, let the day begin to fade, because we are about to step into the secret world of sleep together. Facts, 5,000 to 6,000 words. Fact 1. Sleep remains one of the biggest mysteries in all of science. Researchers have studied it for decades. They have watched brainwaves and measured chemicals and tracked eye movements. They have observed animals and interviewed thousands of people. Yet despite all this work, nobody can fully explain why sleep exists. We know it is necessary, we know it does important things, but the complete picture still escapes us. Every animal with a brain needs some form of rest. This suggests sleep is ancient, perhaps as old as brains themselves. It must serve a purpose so important that evolution refused to let it go. But what that exact purpose is, why nature chose unconsciousness as the solution, why we must lose awareness for hours every night, these questions remain open. Sleep is a riddle that science is still trying to solve. Fact 2. Dreams are one of the strangest things your brain creates. Every night your mind builds entire worlds from nothing. You visit places that do not exist. You talk to people who are not real. You experience emotions that feel completely genuine, even though nothing is actually happening. Dreams can be beautiful or terrifying. They can feel logical or completely absurd. Sometimes you are yourself in a dream. Other times you are someone else entirely. You might fly through the air or breathe underwater. You might relive moments from yesterday or find yourself in situations you have never experienced. And then, within minutes of waking, most of it disappears. Scientists have many theories about why we dream. Some think dreams help process emotions. Others believe they strengthen memories or solve problems. Still others suggest dreams are just random brain activity that your mind tries to make sense of. The truth might be all of these at once. What everyone agrees on is that dreams are powerful, mysterious, and universal. Fact 3. Every creature with a nervous system needs rest in some form. Sleep is not just a human thing, it appears everywhere in nature. Tiny fruit flies pause and become still. Fish hover motionless in water. Birds tuck their heads and close their eyes. Elephants lie down and snore. Even insects seem to need periods of inactivity. This tells us something important. Sleep is not a luxury or a habit. It is written into the basic instructions of life itself. When scientists deprive animals of rest, the results are always bad. The creatures become confused, clumsy, and weak. Their bodies break down, their behavior changes. Eventually, if the deprivation continues long enough, they die. Sleep is as necessary as food or water. It is a requirement that cannot be ignored or replaced. No matter how different creatures are from each other, they all share this one need. Fact 4. Some jellyfish rest even though they have no brain at all. This discovery surprised everyone. Jellyfish are simple creatures. They have no central nervous system, no brain, nothing that looks like what we think of as a mind. Yet researchers noticed that at night, jellyfish pulse more slowly. They drift toward the bottom of the water. They respond less to disturbances. When scientists kept jellyfish awake by gently disturbing them all night, the creatures acted tired the next day. They moved sluggishly and needed extra time to recover. This suggests that sleep might be even older than brains. Perhaps it started as a way for cells to save energy long before complex nervous systems evolved. Perhaps rest is built into life at the most basic level. If even jellyfish need something like sleep, then it must be truly fundamental. Fact 5. Humans spend about 1/3 of their lives asleep. Think about that for a moment. If you live to be 90 years old, you will spend roughly 30 years with your eyes closed. That is more time than most people spend working. More time than most people spend eating or traveling or doing hobbies. Entire decades vanish into the night. But these hours are not wasted. During sleep, your body is incredibly busy. Your brain sorts through memories and decides what to keep. Your immune system fights off infections, your muscles repair themselves. Your heart rate slows and your blood pressure drops, giving your cardiovascular system a chance to recover. Toxins are flushed from your brain. Hormones are released. Energy stores are rebuilt. Without these nightly sessions, your waking life would fall apart. You would struggle to think clearly. Your mood would collapse. Your health would deteriorate. Those 30 years of sleep are not lost time. They are the foundation that makes the other 60 years possible. Fact 6. The longest anyone has stayed awake was 11 days. In 1964, a teenager named Randy Gardner decided to see how long he could stay awake. He wanted to set a record. At first, staying awake was just uncomfortable. He felt tired and irritable, but as the days passed, things got worse. His memory started failing. He could not think clearly. His mood became unstable. By the end of the experiment, he was hallucinating. He saw things that were not there. He mistook objects for people. His grip on reality was slipping. After 11 days and 264 hours without sleep, he finally rested. Remarkably, he recovered fully, but the experience showed how dangerous sleep deprivation can be. His record still stands, but few people have tried to break it. Scientists now know that pushing the body this far is not just difficult, it is potentially deadly. Fact 7. Losing sleep can be more dangerous than losing food. You can survive for weeks without eating. Your body has stored energy it can use, but without sleep you break down within days. Rats that are kept awake die faster than rats that are denied food. In humans, even moderate sleep loss causes serious problems. Your coordination gets worse, your immune system weakens, your blood pressure rises, your judgment becomes clouded. After just one full day without sleep, your reaction time slows as much as if you were drunk. If you continue past that point, hallucinations can begin. Your perception of reality starts to warp. In rare cases, people have died because they lost the ability to sleep entirely. There is a genetic disease called fatal familial insomnia, where the brain gradually loses the capacity to rest. Eventually, the person dies. Food gives you energy, but sleep maintains your mind. Without it, no amount of calories can save you. Fact 8. Your brain cleans itself while you sleep. During the day, your brain creates waste. Neurons burn energy and produce byproducts. Proteins build up between cells. Toxins accumulate. If this waste stayed in your brain, it would cause serious damage over time. But at night, something remarkable happens. When you enter deep sleep, tiny channels in your brain open wider. Fluid washes through like a cleaning tide. This system, called the glymphatic system, carries away the waste and dumps it into the bloodstream where it can be removed from the body. One of the substances cleared out is beta amyloid, a protein linked to Alzheimer's disease. During waking hours, this cleaning process runs slowly. Only in deep sleep does it surge into full action. This may be one reason why sleep feels so restorative. When you wake up refreshed, it is partly because your brain has literally been washed clean. Factor 9. Dreams help process emotion. When you dream, you often revisit things that made you feel strong emotions during the day. You might dream about an argument or a happy moment, or something that scared you. This is not random. Research suggests that dreaming is one way your brain works through feelings. During sleep, the part of your brain that handles emotion, called the amygdala, stays very active, but the chemicals that create stress drop to their lowest levels. This creates a kind of safe space. Your mind can replay difficult experiences without being overwhelmed by them. Emotions get sorted, softened, and stored properly. This is why a good night of rest can make a bad mood feel lighter. It is why grief feels sharper when you cannot sleep. Dreams do not erase pain, but they help transform it into something you can carry. Every dream is a kind of emotional workshop where your brain tinkers with feelings until they fit better. Fact 10. Some people dream entirely in shades of grey. Not everyone dreams in colour. For some individuals, dreams appear in black and white like old photographs. This was much more common decades ago. In the mid-20th century, when black and white television and movies were everywhere, many people reported colourless dreams. Today, as colour media floods daily life, fewer people dream this way. This suggests that dreams are influenced not just by biology, but by what you see while awake. Still, some people continue to dream without colour. Their sleeping worlds are drawn in shadows and contrast. Scientists do not fully understand why. Perhaps their brains are wired differently. Perhaps memory storage skips colour to save energy. Whatever the reason, it shows that even in the private theatre of the mind, the experience of dreaming varies from person to person. Fact 11. Dolphins sleep with half their brain at a time. Dolphins live in water and must surface regularly to breathe. If they fell completely asleep, they would drown, so they evolved an incredible solution. One half of the brain sleeps while the other half stays awake. One eye closes while the other stays open. After a while, the sides switch. This way, dolphins can rest without ever losing awareness. They can swim slowly, come up for air, and watch for danger, all while still getting the benefits of sleep. This type of rest is called unihemispheric sleep. It is a compromise between the need for vigilance and the need for restoration. To us, sleep feels like total surrender. To dolphins, it is a balancing act. Half dreaming, half awake, they glide through the ocean in a state we can barely imagine. Fact 12. Birds can nap while flying through the air. Some birds travel for days over open ocean during migration. They have nowhere to land and no time to stop, yet they still manage to rest. Scientists have discovered that certain birds, like frigate birds, can sleep while gliding. They use the same trick as dolphins, shutting down one half of the brain at a time. These naps are very short, often lasting only seconds. But strung together, they provide just enough rest to keep the bird going. When researchers studied frigate birds in flight, they found the birds got much less sleep than when resting on land. Yet somehow they still functioned. It is a reminder that sleep is flexible. Nature shapes it to fit the demands of survival. Even in the endless sky, with wings stretched wide, rest finds a way. Fact 13. Giraffes sleep less than 2 hours each day. Despite their size and calm appearance, giraffes barely rest at all. On average, they sleep less than 2 hours per day, usually in short bursts of a few minutes. This unusual pattern likely developed because giraffes are vulnerable to predators. Their long necks and legs make lying down awkward and getting back up slow. Sleeping deeply could be fatal in the wild. So instead, they snatch tiny fragments of rest, often while standing. What is remarkable is that these brief naps seem to be enough. Giraffes remain healthy and alert despite sleeping less than almost any other mammal. Their existence raises questions about what enough sleep really means. For giraffes, survival shaped rest into something rare and fleeting. Fact 14. Cats sleep up to 16 hours every day. If giraffes are insomniacs, cats are champion sleepers. Domestic cats often rest between 12 and 16 hours daily, sometimes even more. These hours are spread across many naps throughout the day and night. This behavior comes from their wild ancestors. Big cats like lions and tigers also sleep most of the day, saving energy for short bursts of hunting. For your pet cat, those long naps might seem lazy, but they are actually an ancient survival strategy. Interestingly, cats cycle quickly between light dozing and deep sleep. Their ears twitch at every sound. They are always ready to wake if needed. Even in rest, they stay alert. Watching a cat sleep is like watching evolution at work, and a perfect balance between relaxation and readiness. Fact 15. The platypus experiences more dream sleep than any other mammal. Among Earth's strangest creatures, the platypus also holds a strange sleep record. Studies show that platypuses spend up to 8 hours each day in REM sleep, the stage most linked to vivid dreaming. That is more than humans, more than cats, even more than newborn babies. During this time, their brains are extremely active. Their eyes flicker beneath closed lids. Their bodies sometimes twitch. Why would a semi-aquatic egg-laying mammal need so much REM sleep? One theory is that REM evolved from an even older behavior, the rehearsal of movements during rest. In the platypus, this may remain exaggerated. By studying its sleep, scientists glimpse how dreaming might have developed in all mammals. The platypus carries an ancient dream world in its genes. Fact 16. Some people can control their dreams. This ability is called lucid dreaming. In a lucid dream, you realize you are dreaming while still inside the dream. For some people, this awareness allows astonishing freedom. They can fly through landscapes, walk through walls, or reshape entire dream worlds with intention. Lucid dreaming has been practiced in spiritual traditions for centuries. Modern science has confirmed it is real. Brain scans show unique patterns during these states, a blend of sleeping and waking consciousness. Some people stumble into lucidity by accident. Others train themselves using techniques like keeping a dream journal or practicing reality checks during the day. For those who master it, the dream world becomes a laboratory for creativity, healing, or pure wonder. The idea that your mind can recognize its own illusions and then play with them is extraordinary. Fact 17. Sleep strengthens your memories. When you learn something new, study for a test, or practice a skill, sleep is what locks those experiences into place. During deep sleep, a part of your brain called the hippocampus replays recent experiences. It transfers them into long-term storage in another part of the brain called the cortex. It is like running an overnight backup of important files. At the same time, unimportant details are pruned away, making room for new learning. Without sleep, memories remain fragile. They fade quickly. With sleep, they crystallize and become part of who you are. This is why staying up all night to study usually backfires. Your brain has not had time to save what you learned. Every night of sleep is a silent tutor, reinforcing the lessons of the day and weaving them into your mind. Fact 18. Losing sleep makes you more likely to remember things wrong. Not only does sleep strengthen memory, but losing it can distort what you recall. Sleep-deprived brains struggle to tell the difference between real memories and imagined details. You might become confident about false recollections, certain that something happened when it did not. Studies show that even mild sleep loss increases confusion and suggestibility. This can have serious consequences, from mistaken eyewitness accounts to poor decisions in daily life. A tired brain stitches fragments together in clumsy ways. Instead of carefully sorting experiences, it scrambles them. Sleep is not just about remembering, it is about remembering accurately. Without it, the story of your own life becomes blurred. Fact 19. Most vivid dreaming happens during REM sleep. The dreamscapes that stay with you, the surreal adventures and emotional encounters in impossible places, mostly arise during REM sleep. This stage is marked by rapid eye movements beneath closed eyelids. It occurs in cycles throughout the night, usually lengthening as morning approaches. During REM, your brain is nearly as active as when you are awake. Visual centers light up, emotions surge, memory fragments are stitched into bizarre stories. Yet your muscles remain paralyzed, preventing you from acting out the dreams. Scientists believe this paralysis is a safety mechanism. Without it, you might hurt yourself or others while dreaming. REM is proof that even while asleep, the brain does not shut down. It invents entire worlds. Fact 20. Deep sleep helps repair your muscles. When you fall into the slow, heavy rhythms of deep sleep, your body shifts into repair mode. A substance called growth hormone is released in higher quantities. This stimulates tissue repair and muscle growth. This is why athletes prioritize long, deep rest. Their bodies actually recover during sleep. Even if you are not an athlete, your muscles constantly repair tiny stresses from daily life. Deep sleep is when that restoration happens. Miss out on it and your body feels weaker and less resilient. Deep sleep is like a hidden workshop where broken parts are quietly fixed and strength is renewed. Without it, physical recovery stalls and the body never fully resets. Fact 21. Sleep helps control your appetite. The amount you sleep directly affects how hungry you feel. Sleep regulates two hormones, ghrelin and leptin. Ghrelin signals hunger, leptin signals fullness. When you do not get enough rest, ghrelin levels rise, telling your body to eat more. Leptin levels fall, failing to signal satisfaction. The result is stronger cravings, often for high-calorie foods. This makes evolutionary sense. When the body feels depleted, it seeks more energy. But in modern times, chronic sleep deprivation often leads to overeating and weight gain. It is not just willpower, it is biology. When you sleep well, you reset the delicate balance of appetite. A good night of rest is one of the simplest ways to maintain healthy eating patterns. Fact 22. When you are sleep deprived, you crave junk food specifically. The connection between sleep and appetite goes deeper. Studies show that tired people do not just eat more. They specifically want high-sugar, high-fat foods. Brain scans reveal why. Tired brains show heightened activity in reward centers when exposed to images of cookies, chips, or pizza. At the same time, the parts responsible for self-control grow sluggish. This combination, stronger cravings and weaker restraint, makes resisting junk food much harder. Some researchers argue that sleep deprivation may be a hidden driver of obesity. When you are tired, your body tricks you into chasing quick, empty calories. Sleep is not just medicine for the mind, it is a shield against cravings the body cannot regulate without rest. Fact 23. Sleep boosts your immune system. Every night of sleep strengthens your defenses against illness. During deep rest, the immune system releases proteins called cytokines that fight infection and inflammation. Sleep also improves the efficiency of T cells, the white blood cells that hunt and destroy invaders. People who consistently get adequate sleep are less likely to catch colds, flu, and other infections. Vaccines work better in well-rested individuals because immune memory forms more strongly. The link is so powerful that a few nights of poor sleep can make you significantly more vulnerable to viruses. Sleep is reinforcement for the body, a shield rebuilt nightly against unseen threats. Without it, defenses falter. With it, your body stands guard, restored and ready. Fact 24. People who sleep less are more likely to get sick. After late nights or stressful weeks, you're more likely to fall ill. Sleep loss weakens immune function, leaving the body open to infection. In one study, volunteers were exposed to a common cold virus. Those who had slept fewer than 7 hours were almost 3 times more likely to develop symptoms than those who slept 8 or more. The pattern holds across many illnesses. Chronic sleep deprivation is linked to infections, slower healing from injuries, greater inflammation, and even higher cancer risk. Sleep is not a luxury, it is frontline defense. Every missed hour carves small cracks in your shield. To stay well, sometimes the simplest medicine is not in a bottle, but in the quiet of night. Factor 25. Your brain uses less energy in deep sleep than when awake. During deep, slow-wave sleep, the brain's overall energy consumption drops dramatically. Even though certain repair and memory functions surge, this lowered demand may be one reason deep sleep feels so restorative. The brain finally gets a break from its constant processing. Quiet rhythms of slow waves sweep across neural networks like tides pulling back from a busy shore. This rest is not total shutdown, but a deliberate slowing. Remarkably, the brain uses nearly as much energy during REM sleep as when awake. but in deep sleep it falls into a low-power mode. Each deep sleep phase is a pocket of balance when the mind finally sets its tools down and breathes. Fact 26. Sleep helps your brain rewire itself in powerful ways. One of the most important gifts that sleep provides is something called neuroplasticity, which is the brain's ability to change and adapt throughout your life. During the day, as you learn new things, connections between neurons are strengthened. But these connections are also messy, overloaded, and somewhat inefficient at first. At night, especially during sleep, the brain does something remarkable. It prunes away unnecessary connections and strengthens the important ones, reshaping its wiring for greater clarity and efficiency. This process is similar to tending a garden. You trim away excess branches that do not serve the plant. You nourish the strongest stems. You create pathways that allow growth to flourish in the right directions. Without sleep, learning remains tangled like seeds scattered across hard ground but never taking root. With proper sleep, experiences sink deeper into your mind, forming lasting knowledge and skill. This rewiring also makes the brain more flexible and better able to adapt to future challenges. Sleep is not just about recovering from yesterday, it is about preparing for tomorrow. It literally sculpts the brain, turning fleeting experiences into the permanent architecture of thought and memory. Fact 27. Babies spend half their sleeping time in REM. Infants spend an astonishing amount of time in REM sleep, sometimes up to half of their total rest period. This is far more than adults, who average only about 20% REM. Scientists believe this abundance plays a vital role in brain development. Babies are constantly absorbing new sensations, sights, sounds, textures, and patterns. Their brains must rapidly build the neural networks to handle all this incoming information. REM sleep may help integrate this flood of stimulation, weaving it into early memory and learning structures. The twitching and small movements often seen in sleeping babies may be outward signs of this intense brain activity happening beneath the surface. As children grow older, the proportion of REM gradually decreases, settling into more adult-like patterns. But in those early years, dreaming may be one of the hidden engines of development, building the architecture of the mind before it even learns to speak or form conscious memories. In a very real sense, babies are learning even while they appear to be doing nothing at all. Fact 28. Newborns can sleep up to 17 hours each day. The first weeks and months of life are dominated by sleep. Newborn babies can rest for 16 or 17 hours out of every 24, though this sleep rarely comes in long, uninterrupted stretches. Instead, their rest is fragmented into short cycles, often only 2 or 3 hours at a time, aligned with their need for frequent feeding. Though this pattern is exhausting for parents who must wake repeatedly through the night, it serves an important biological purpose. Newborn brains are in a critical stage of explosive growth, and sleep provides the necessary environment for this development to occur. The constant alternation between REM and non-REM sleep helps consolidate learning, even from the earliest experiences, such as recognizing a parent's voice or face. Over the first few months of life, the sleep gradually becomes more consolidated into longer periods. But those early weeks remind us that human life begins immersed in dreams. A newborn spends more time asleep than awake, as though the mind must first practice existence in the quiet rehearsal space of sleep before it can confidently face the complexities of the waking world. Fact 29. Teenagers naturally fall asleep later than adults or children. If you have ever wondered why teenagers struggle so much with going to bed early, or waking up for morning classes, the answer lies not in laziness but in fundamental biology. During adolescence, the body's circadian rhythm, the internal clock that regulates sleep and wakefulness, naturally shifts to a later schedule. Melatonin, the hormone that signals sleepiness and prepares the body for rest, is released later in the evening for teenagers than it is for children or adults. This biological shift makes teens naturally inclined to stay up late at night and sleep later in the morning. Unfortunately, modern school schedules often force teenagers to wake long before their bodies are biologically ready, creating widespread sleep deprivation among adolescents. This chronic mismatch between biology and schedule can significantly affect mood, academic performance, mental health, and even physical well-being. When schools have experimented with shifting start times to later in the morning, studies consistently show improvements in attendance, grades, alertness, and overall student well-being. For teenagers, the desire to stay up late is not rebellion or poor discipline. It is simply biology. Their internal clocks are set differently, following a natural rhythm that often clashes with the rigid demands of the adult world around them. Fact 30. Sleep cycles last roughly 90 minutes each. Human sleep follows a repeating rhythm that lasts about 90 minutes from start to finish. Each cycle moves through distinct stages. It begins with light sleep, then descends into deep, slow-wave sleep, where the body performs much of its physical restoration. After that, the cycle rises back up into REM sleep, where vivid dreaming typically occurs. Then the whole pattern begins again. Over the course of a typical night, most people experience 4 to 6 complete cycles. The proportion of each stage shifts as the night progresses. Early cycles contain more deep, slow-wave sleep, which is why the first few hours of rest are so important for physical recovery. Later cycles, especially those happening in the early morning hours, contain progressively more REM sleep, which is why dreams often become longer, stranger, and more memorable toward dawn. This 90-minute rhythm is remarkably consistent across most people, though the exact length can vary slightly between individuals. Some researchers suggest that aligning your wake time with the natural end of a cycle, rather than interrupting one midway through, can help you feel more refreshed and alert upon waking. Whatever strategy you choose, understanding this 90-minute cycle helps reveal the hidden metronome guiding your night, the fundamental beat of human rest. Fact 31. You go through roughly 5 sleep cycles each night. On an average night of 7 to 8 hours, most people complete about 5 full sleep cycles from beginning to end. That means 5 separate descents into the depths of slow-wave sleep and 5 separate ascents into the vivid dream theatres of REM. Each cycle is unique in its composition and purpose. The first cycle might contain a large portion of deep restorative sleep, while later cycles become progressively richer in REM and dreaming. This natural pattern explains why the final hours of sleep are often the most dream-filled and emotionally vivid. It also explains why cutting your night short by even an hour or two can deprive you of significant amounts of REM sleep, since those later cycles contain the most. These 5 cycles provide balance and completeness. Deep restoration arrives early in the night. Emotional processing and cognitive integration happen more toward morning. Together, they form the full architecture of rest, the hidden scaffolding that makes waking life possible and sustainable. To think that every single night your mind quietly journeys through 5 carefully timed loops of work, repair, dreaming, and renewal, it is to realize that sleep is not simple unconsciousness, but rather a complex voyage repeated endlessly throughout your entire life. Fact 32. People who nap regularly may live longer. Across many cultures around the world, napping has been seen as both a practical necessity and a cherished tradition. Modern science now hints that those short periods of daytime rest may also be connected to longevity and better health outcomes. Studies conducted in Mediterranean countries, where afternoon siestas remain relatively common, suggest that people who nap regularly have lower rates of heart disease and may even have reduced overall mortality risk. The reason may be straightforward. Naps lower stress hormones, reduce blood pressure, and give the cardiovascular system precious time to recover from the demands of activity. Napping also restores mental alertness, balances mood, and reduces the cumulative wear and tear that daily stress places on the body. While not all research reaches identical conclusions and more study is needed, the pattern is intriguing and consistent enough to take seriously. A short nap is not just an indulgence or a luxury reserved for those with spare time. It may actually be a small but meaningful investment in long-term health and survival. Imagine the possibility of living longer, not by taking more action or consuming more supplements, but simply by surrendering more often to stillness and rest. In the brief quiet of an afternoon nap, the body seems to remember something essential and ancient, that rest itself is a form of strength and resilience. Fact 33. A 20-minute nap can significantly improve learning and memory. Short naps lasting around 20 minutes are sometimes called power naps, and this name is well-deserved. In that brief window of time, the brain dips into the lighter stages of sleep, refreshing focus, sharpening attention, and consolidating recent memories without entering the deeper stages that can leave you feeling groggy and disoriented upon waking. Research consistently shows that these short naps can boost learning, improve problem-solving ability, and restore alertness in dramatic ways. Students who take a brief nap after studying often perform significantly better on memory tests compared to those who stay awake. Even professionals in high-pressure environments, such as airline pilots, surgeons, and emergency responders, rely on carefully timed short naps to keep their performance sharp and their judgment clear during long shifts. The beneficial effect is so consistent and well documented that some forward-thinking workplaces have begun experimenting with nap pods and designated quiet spaces, offering employees the opportunity to reset mentally in the middle of a demanding workday. 20 minutes may not sound like much time, but it is enough for the brain to catch its breath and clear away some of the fog of fatigue. It is like pausing briefly in the middle of a long, steep climb to let your muscles recover before continuing upward. Sleep does not always need to be long in duration to be powerful in effect. Fact 34. Longer naps can leave you feeling groggy and disoriented. Though short naps can be wonderfully refreshing, there is a tipping point where napping too long begins to backfire. Naps lasting 30 to 60 minutes often dip into the deeper stages of sleep, where brainwaves slow dramatically and the body enters more intensive restoration mode. Waking up from this deeper sleep can feel like dragging yourself through thick mud. This state, called sleep inertia, occurs because the brain is caught mid-cycle with neurons still firing at those slow restorative rhythms. The result is grogginess, confusion, sluggish thinking, and heavy limbs, a general sense of having slept too much rather than just enough. This foggy feeling can last for minutes or even longer, temporarily impairing performance and mood. Additionally, taking long naps during the day, especially in the late afternoon or evening, may interfere with the nighttime sleep by reducing sleep pressure and shifting the circadian rhythm. Still, longer naps are not always problematic. In cultures where extended siestas are traditional, people naturally balance daytime rest with adjusted nighttime schedules. For most individuals in modern societies, however, the sweet spot for napping is short enough to refresh but not so long that you sink too deep into sleep and struggle to resurface. The art of napping is not just about closing your eyes. It is about knowing precisely when to open them again. Fact 35. Monks in some traditions train to sleep sitting upright. In certain monastic traditions, particularly within some branches of Buddhism, sleep itself is considered part of spiritual practice and mindfulness training. Monks may train themselves to rest while sitting upright in meditation posture, maintaining balance without leaning left or right, without collapsing into full unconsciousness. This unusual method reduces the depth of immersion in sleep and keeps the mind hovering closer to wakeful awareness even during rest. Some monks reportedly sleep only a few hours each night, distributing their rest across brief intervals while maintaining remarkable clarity of thought and presence throughout their waking hours. To them, sleep is not an escape from awareness, but another form of discipline, another arena in which to practice mindfulness and control. By learning to rest without sprawling or surrendering completely to unconsciousness, they embody the philosophical idea that even sleep can be shaped, trained, and spiritualized. Imagine drifting into rest while sitting perfectly upright, the body balanced and still, the mind floating in a space somewhere between dream and meditation. For most of us, sleep is something that overtakes us, pulling us down into depths we cannot control. For these monks, however, sleep becomes another form of the intentional practice, a quiet reminder that even the most automatic biological processes can be approached with awareness and discipline. Fact 36. Napoleon Bonaparte famously claimed to need very little sleep. Napoleon, the French emperor and brilliant military strategist, was said to require astonishingly little sleep compared to most people. Historical reports suggest he often slept only 4 hours per night, taking brief naps whenever necessary to maintain his relentless pace. He reportedly considered sleep a waste of valuable time, once remarking dismissively that 6 hours were sufficient for a man, 7 for a woman, and 8 for a fool. His habits reflected his enormous drive and ambition, characterized by long military campaigns, constant decision-making, and a pronounced impatience with anything that slowed him down. Yet history also hints at the physical and mental toll this lifestyle extracted. Toward the end of his reign, various accounts describe Napoleon as increasingly erratic, prone to exhaustion, and diminished in the sharp clarity that had once defined his strategic genius. While his brilliance and accomplishments were undeniable, it is tempting to wonder how much greater his judgment and longevity might have been, with more adequate rest. Napoleon remains one of history's most famous examples of so-called short sleepers, individuals who seem able to function on remarkably little sleep. But for the vast majority of people, attempting to emulate such a schedule would be disastrous. His empire may have been built on boundless ambition and willpower, but his body quietly carried the mounting cost of countless sleepless nights. Fact 37. Leonardo da Vinci reportedly experimented with polyphasic sleep schedules. Leonardo da Vinci, the Renaissance genius whose mind ranged across art, science, engineering, and anatomy, is rumoured to have experimented with an unusual approach to sleep called polyphasic rest. Instead of sleeping in one long block each night, he supposedly broke his rest into many short naps scattered throughout the entire day and night. The idea behind this strategy was that instead of dedicating 7 or 8 continuous hours to sleep, he could maintain creative energy and productivity around the clock by napping for just 15 or 20 minutes at a time multiple times per day. Whether these stories are historically accurate or somewhat exaggerated remains uncertain, but the method he allegedly used, sometimes called the Uberman schedule in modern times, has fascinated experimenters and biohackers for generations. In theory, polyphasic sleep might reduce total hours spent resting, while still providing enough REM and deep sleep in concentrated bursts. In practice, however, it is extremely grueling, difficult to maintain in any social context, and often unsustainable over the long term. Most people who attempt it eventually abandon the schedule due to exhaustion or social isolation. Still, the romantic image of Leonardo sketching revolutionary inventions and anatomical studies between tiny naps is irresistible. It suggests that sleep, like art itself, can be bent, reshaped, and reimagined, though usually at great personal cost. For most human beings, the traditional nightly rest is not just cultural habit, but biological necessity. For Leonardo, however, even sleep may have been just another canvas for experimentation. Fact 38. Thomas Edison considered sleep a waste of time. Thomas Edison, the prolific inventor responsible for the electric light bulb among countless other innovations, openly viewed sleep with suspicion and disdain. He considered it an obstacle and a thief, something that robbed him of precious hours that could instead be devoted to invention and progress. With the advent of electric lighting, Edison believed humanity could finally conquer the tyranny of night, extending productive waking hours indefinitely and reducing dependence on rest. Ironically, despite his public contempt for sleep, modern historical records and accounts from those who knew him reveal that Edison himself napped frequently, sometimes dozing off in his workshop chair for short periods throughout the day. These brief naps may have actually fueled his legendary creativity, offering concentrated bursts of restoration and inspiration between long stretches of focused work. But his vocal disdain for sleep helped shape a persistent cultural legacy, one that equates long working hours with achievement and productivity while framing rest as laziness or weakness. Today we know far better. Sleep actively enhances creativity, sharpens problem-solving ability, and drives innovation. Perhaps Edison's brilliance flourished not despite sleep, but partly because of those stolen naps he dismissed so readily. He may have publicly called sleep a waste, but in reality those brief surrenders to rest were likely among his most important and underappreciated tools, silently shaping the inventions that ultimately changed the entire world. Fact 39. Blind people can still experience visual imagery in dreams. Even individuals who have never seen the world with their physical eyes may experience visual elements in their dreams. People who lose their vision later in life often continue to dream in rich images long after blindness sets in, drawing on stored visual memories from when they could see. But even those born completely blind report dreams filled with vivid sensory detail, including sound, touch, smell, spatial awareness, and sometimes even flashes of visual-like imagery shaped entirely by the brain itself, rather than by actual sight. These dreamscapes may be populated by voices, textures, and spatial patterns that feel just as vivid and real as visual sight does for others. This remarkable phenomenon shows that dreaming is not simply the replaying of sensory input collected during waking hours. Instead, it is a deeply creative act of the brain, constructing its own reality with or without vision. For someone who has never seen a sunrise, watched colours change in autumn leaves, or looked into another person's eyes, dreams may still contain rich landscapes built entirely from memory, imagination, emotion, and other senses. It reminds us powerfully that the dream world belongs fundamentally to the brain itself, not to the eyes. Dreams are generated from within, shaped by experience but not limited by it. Fact 40. Some people have recurring dreams that persist across decades. A surprising number of people report experiencing dreams that repeat throughout their entire lives, sometimes spanning decades from childhood into adulthood. These recurring dreams may feature the same locations, themes, characters, or even exact storylines. Common examples include being chased by something threatening, showing up unprepared for an important exam, discovering new rooms in a familiar house, or flying through recognizable skies. Scientists and psychologists suggest that these persistent dreams may reflect unresolved emotions, ongoing sources of stress, or deeply imprinted memories that the mind continues processing. What makes them extraordinary is how long they can persist, sometimes appearing frequently in childhood, vanishing completely for many years, and then suddenly returning again in adulthood, often during periods of stress or transition. For the dreamer, these recurring stories can feel like messages from the subconscious, puzzles waiting to be solved, or echoes of something important left unfinished in the psyche. Whether they hold profound hidden meaning or simply reflect the brain's habitual patterns and preferred neural pathways, recurring dreams show clearly that the dream world is not entirely random or chaotic. It has its own internal continuity, its own persistent themes and narratives, a secret story that threads through years and decades, shaping the private mythology of each person's inner life. Fact 41. Nightmares are significantly more common in children than adults. Children often experience nightmares more frequently and intensely than adults do. Their developing brains and raw, unfiltered emotions often spill directly into dreams, creating vivid and sometimes terrifying scenarios. Nightmares in childhood may reflect fears of separation from parents, encounters with imaginary monsters, or attempts to process real-life stresses that feel overwhelming to a young mind. These frightening dreams can be extremely vivid, sometimes waking the child in tears or distress. Over time, as emotional regulation improves and the brain matures, nightmares typically decrease in frequency, though they may surge again during adolescence when emotions run particularly high. Some researchers suggest that nightmares may actually serve an important developmental purpose, allowing children to rehearse responses to potential threats in a safe environment, a kind of emotional and psychological training. Whatever their ultimate function, nightmares remind us that dreams are not always gentle or pleasant. For children especially, sleep can sometimes be a landscape populated by both wonder and fear, a space where imagination occasionally turns against them. And yet even the worst nightmares eventually pass, giving way over time to the generally calmer and less frightening rhythms of adult dreaming, leaving behind only faint memories of the monsters that once prowled through childhood nights. Fact 42. Sleep paralysis can cause terrifying waking dreams. Sleep paralysis is a phenomenon where the body remains frozen in the muscle paralysis that normally prevents us from physically acting out our dreams, but the mind becomes partially or fully aware. The result is a deeply unsettling state where you are conscious and awake but completely unable to move your body, often accompanied by vivid and frightening hallucinations. People commonly report feeling intense pressure on the chest, sensing malevolent presences in the room, seeing shadowy figures standing nearby, or hearing strange sounds. Cultures around the world have historically explained sleep paralysis as supernatural visitations by demons, ghosts, witches, or evil spirits. In reality, it represents a collision between the dreaming state and waking consciousness, a momentary glitch where these normally separate states overlap. Though the experience can be absolutely terrifying, it is usually harmless and typically lasts only seconds to minutes before the body fully wakes and movement returns. For those who experience it, especially for the first time, the boundary between dream and reality becomes disturbingly thin and porous. Sleep paralysis serves as a stark reminder that dreaming is not always neatly separated from waking life. Sometimes these two states bleed together in frightening ways, blurring the usual clear lines of consciousness. Fact 43. People once believed nightmares were caused by demons sitting on the chest. For many centuries across various cultures, nightmares were thought to be literal attacks by supernatural beings, rather than products of the dreaming mind. In medieval Europe, they were commonly blamed on demons, witches, or evil spirits that would sit on the sleeper's chest during the night, suffocating them and filling their dreams with terror and dread. The word nightmare itself originally did not refer to a bad dream at all, but rather to an evil spirit or demon called a mare that visited people in the night. These widespread beliefs likely stemmed from common experiences of sleep paralysis, when dreamlike visions overlap with partial wakefulness and the sensation of pressure on the chest. The feeling of being pinned down, unable to move or breathe properly, naturally gave rise to stories of malevolent entities. Across different cultures, remarkably similar myths appear independently, featuring spirits pressing on sleepers, stealing breath, or whispering frightening things into dreams. Today we explain nightmares through brain activity, emotional processing, and memory consolidation rather than supernatural forces. But the old stories linger powerfully, echoing through our language and cultural memory. Even now, when someone wakes from a truly terrifying dream, it can still feel viscerally like something external and malevolent pressed its way into the night, even though we know rationally that the source was internal. Fact 44. The word nightmare originally meant a night demon, not a bad dream. The etymological roots of the word nightmare trace back to Old English, where mare described an evil spirit, goblin or demon that was believed to oppress people during sleep. The nightmare was imagined as a dark, malevolent presence that would sit heavily on the chest of the sleeper, suffocating them and filling their rest with horrible visions and sensations. Over many centuries, the meaning gradually shifted. Instead of referring to the demon itself, the word came to describe the terrifying dream experience that the demon was thought to cause. This linguistic transformation reflects the broader evolution of human understanding, moving gradually from supernatural explanations to psychological and neurological ones, from attributing experiences to external forces to understanding them as products of the internal mind. Yet even today, long after we have discarded the literal belief in night demons, the word retains a sense of oppression and haunting. When we describe something as a nightmare, we mean it is more than merely unpleasant or bad. It is oppressive, consuming, inescapable, suffocating. In this subtle way, language still carries distant echoes of ancient fear and superstition, a reminder that sleep has always been a mysterious place where human imagination collides with darkness, where the line between the external world and internal experience becomes dangerously unclear. Fact 45. Sleepwalking is significantly more common in children than adults. Sleepwalking, also called somnambulism, is a phenomenon where people rise from bed and move around while remaining deeply asleep and unaware of their actions. It is most common in children, affecting as many as 1 in 5 at some point during their development. During sleepwalking episodes, the child may wander through the house, talk incoherently, or even perform relatively complex actions like opening doors or going up and down stairs, all while their eyes may be open but their awareness is completely absent. The underlying cause is thought to be linked to immaturity in the brain systems that regulate the boundary between sleep and wakefulness. As children grow and their brains mature, these episodes usually diminish and eventually disappear. For parents, witnessing sleepwalking can be both fascinating and deeply alarming, watching their child move with open eyes but empty awareness, like a ghost inhabiting their own home. Though usually harmless, sleepwalking can raise safety concerns if the child wanders too far, attempts to leave the house, or encounters stairs or other hazards. Sleepwalking perfectly illustrates how surprisingly porous the boundaries of sleep can be, demonstrating how the body sometimes slips into physical action and movement, while the conscious mind remains completely locked away in the depths of dreaming. Fact 46. Some people eat food in their sleep without any memory of it. A rare but fascinating condition known as sleep-related eating disorder causes people to prepare and consume food while still asleep, with little or no memory of the event the next morning. Episodes may involve raiding the refrigerator, preparing simple meals, or eating unusual combinations of food, sometimes even unsafe or inedible items. Like sleepwalking, this disorder arises from partial arousal during deep sleep, when motor systems and certain behaviors activate without full conscious awareness or control. For those affected, it can be genuinely distressing and even dangerous, potentially leading to injuries from cooking while asleep, significant unwanted weight gain, or consumption of harmful substances. Yet the behaviors are often highly automatic, driven by misfiring neural patterns rather than actual hunger or conscious desire. To the sleeper, It is as if an entirely different self takes over at night, silently raiding the kitchen and eating without permission. Cases like this remind us strikingly that sleep is not always peaceful, orderly, or predictable. Sometimes it is fractured, strange, and deeply unpredictable, blurring the normally clear line between waking habits, automatic behaviors, and dreaming instincts in ways that can be both bizarre and troubling. Fact 47. Sleep talking can happen in any stage of sleep throughout the night. Somniloquy, or sleep talking, is one of the most common sleep-related behaviors that people experience. Individuals may mumble incoherently, whisper quietly, or even shout full sentences while remaining completely asleep and unaware. It can occur during any stage of sleep, from very light dozing all the way through to deep slow-wave sleep, though the content and clarity differ depending on the stage. During deep sleep, words are often garbled, nonsensical, or completely incomprehensible. In lighter stages of sleep, speech may be surprisingly clear, sometimes startlingly coherent, and occasionally even seem to respond to external sounds or questions. Most sleep talkers have absolutely no memory of the event when they wake, leaving bed partners either amused, puzzled, or occasionally concerned. Though usually completely harmless, sleep talking reveals just how active the brain remains throughout the night. Language networks can spark into sudden motion even when consciousness is completely offline. In a strange way, sleep talking is like accidentally eavesdropping on the mind's unfinished thoughts, catching fragments of inner worlds as they slip momentarily into audible sound before vanishing back into silence. Fact 48. Some people sing in their sleep, not just talk. Though considerably rarer than simple sleep talking, some sleepers have been documented humming tunes, reciting song lyrics, or even breaking into full, though usually drowsy and imperfect, musical performances while completely asleep. This phenomenon, sometimes called somniloquy with singing, emerges from the same basic mechanism as sleep talking, occurring when language and vocal centers of the brain activate during sleep without conscious control. Reports range from soft, almost ghostly melodies, hummed quietly, to startlingly loud bursts of song that wake others nearby. Some people have even been recorded singing relatively complex pieces, though usually in broken, distorted, or fragmentary ways. The content often comes from memory, blending with current dream imagery in unpredictable combinations. For those who happen to overhear it, sleep singing can be either eerie or strangely enchanting, like hearing a concert performed by someone who has no awareness they're performing at all. Singing in sleep beautifully underscores how deeply creative and expressive the mind can be when completely unbound from wakeful control and self-consciousness. Even in total unconsciousness, even when logic and awareness have completely faded, the human brain sometimes simply cannot help but make music. Factor 49. Dogs twitch during sleep because they are actively dreaming. If you have ever watched a dog sleeping, you may have noticed their paws jerking rhythmically, their whiskers twitching, their legs making running motions, or muffled barks and whimpers escaping from their throat. These movements are visible signs that dogs experience REM sleep and are actively dreaming. Scientific studies confirm that dogs go through the same sleep stages as humans, including periods of vivid dreaming. Puppies tend to twitch more frequently and dramatically than older dogs, likely because their developing brains are still actively wiring themselves and rehearsing motor skills through dream practice. What exactly do dogs dream about? While we obviously cannot ask them directly, experiments and observations strongly suggest that their dreams often replay daily activities like chasing, playing, running, sniffing, and interacting with their environment and companions. Watching a sleeping dog's paws paddle rhythmically through the air, you may very well be witnessing them running through dream meadows or chasing dream squirrels that only they can see. It is both comforting and profound to realize that animals share not just the biological need for sleep, but also the deep mystery and richness of dreams. When a dog twitches and murmurs in sleep, they may be experiencing their own private adventures in landscapes we will never see. Fact 50. Rats dreamed about running through mazes they navigated while awake. Rats are frequently used in sleep research, and what scientists have discovered about their dreams is genuinely remarkable. Rats dream about their daily experiences, essentially replaying and processing what they learned while awake. When rats run through a maze during the day, their brains form distinctive, recognizable firing patterns as they navigate each turn and corridor. Later, during sleep, researchers can record nearly identical neural patterns playing out again, as though the rat is mentally running through the same maze again in its dreams. Sometimes the neural sequence plays faster than real time, sometimes in reverse, suggesting the brain is not just passively replaying, but actively rehearsing, analyzing, and consolidating the experience. These findings strongly support the theory that sleep serves a critical function in memory consolidation and learning. In a very real way, the rat's dream is its homework, its brain replaying lessons and routes until they become permanently embedded. Humans almost certainly do something remarkably similar, mentally revisiting fragments of the day, practicing skills, or mentally reshaping challenges in dream form while we sleep. Watching the patterns in a rat's dreaming brain is like catching a glimpse of our own invisible mental processes, proof that even in the tiny skull of a rodent, dreams speak a universal language of memory and learning. Fact 51. Sleep loss affects your mood and emotions before it impacts thinking ability. When you miss sleep, the very first thing to deteriorate is not your intelligence or cognitive ability, but rather your emotional stability and mood. Even a single night of poor or inadequate rest can make irritability swell dramatically, amplify stress responses, and intensify feelings of sadness or anxiety. Brain imaging studies reveal why this happens so quickly. The amygdala, a small almond-shaped region deep in the brain that processes fear, anger, and other strong emotions, becomes hyperactive and oversensitive without adequate sleep. Meanwhile, the prefrontal cortex, which normally acts as the rational, calming voice that regulates and tempers emotional reactions, grows significantly weaker and less effective. This neurological imbalance leaves people quick to snap at others, far less patient than usual, and much more likely to overreact to minor frustrations or setbacks. Interestingly, cognitive abilities like complex problem-solving, abstract reasoning, and memory recall often decline noticeably later, only after mood has already begun to unravel significantly. This pattern suggests that sleep serves as the foundation for emotional balance and regulation before it functions to protect purely intellectual capabilities. It explains why exhaustion makes the entire world feel heavier and more burdensome, why small arguments escalate into major conflicts, and why frustrations become far harder to ignore or dismiss. Sleep is not merely a balm for the tired body, it forms the essential foundation for emotional calm and stability. Without it, even the brightest, most intelligent mind cannot successfully keep storms of overwhelming emotion from constantly breaking through defenses. Fact 52. You cannot truly catch up on lost sleep completely. Many people operate under the mistaken belief that a weekend of sleeping late can fully erase and compensate for the accumulated debt of multiple sleepless nights during the week. But scientific research shows clearly that lost sleep can never be fully or completely recovered once it is gone. While getting extra rest can certainly ease some immediate symptoms like mental fog, drowsiness and irritability, certain critical deficits, particularly around memory consolidation, immune system function, and cellular repair, simply cannot be made up retroactively once the window has passed. The human body cannot store sleep for later use the way it might store calories as fat. Instead, it operates on tightly regulated daily cycles that must be renewed and reset each night. Chronic sleep debt builds up gradually and insidiously over time, subtly eroding attention span, destabilizing mood, and compromising long-term health, even when people subjectively feel they are coping reasonably well. It functions much like missing meals regularly. Eating twice as much food tomorrow does not undo or reverse the physiological damage of starvation today. The only true cure for ongoing sleep loss is establishing and maintaining consistency, giving both body and mind steady, reliable, predictable rest night after night. A single luxuriously long night of sleep may feel wonderfully indulgent and restorative into the moment, but it fundamentally cannot replace or restore the countless invisible repairs, consolidations, and maintenance processes that should have been happening gradually each evening all along the way. Fact 53. People who consistently sleep less tend to weigh more over time. Across large populations studied worldwide, short sleep duration is consistently and strongly linked to higher body weight and increased obesity risk. The underlying reasons are complex and multifaceted, but they often come down to hormonal disruption and altered eating behavior. Sleep loss significantly increases ghrelin, the hormone responsible for signaling hunger and appetite, while simultaneously reducing leptin, the hormone that signals satisfaction and fullness after eating. The combined result is stronger, more persistent appetites, coupled with weaker feelings of satisfaction after consuming food. Sleep-deprived individuals also demonstrate a marked tendency to crave specifically high-calorie foods as the exhausted brain desperately seeks quick sources of energy to compensate for feeling depleted and maintain wakefulness. Over weeks, months, and years, this pattern leads predictably to overeating, progressive weight gain, and great difficulty maintaining healthy balance. Additionally, metabolism itself may slow down measurably without adequate sleep, making consumed calories harder to burn efficiently. Though lifestyle factors like diet quality and exercise levels obviously play enormous roles in determining the body weight, sleep quietly shapes the metabolic and hormonal background of it all. Fact 54. Insomnia affects up to 1/3 of all adults at some point. Insomnia stands as one of the most prevalent and troublesome sleep disorders affecting modern populations, touching millions of people worldwide across all demographics. At some point during their lives, as many as 1 in 3 adults will experience significant periods of difficulty, either falling asleep initially, staying asleep through the night, or waking far too early in the morning and being unable to return to rest. For some individuals, insomnia is temporary and situational, clearly tied to specific stressors like grief, major life transitions, work pressure, or environmental disruptions. For others, however, it becomes chronic and persistent, transforming into a nightly struggle that steadily drains both energy and emotional resilience over months or years. The cruel and frustrating paradox at the heart of insomnia is that the harder you consciously try to force yourself to sleep, the more stubbornly elusive it becomes. Anxiety about sleeplessness feeds directly into the cycle, creating a self-perpetuating loop that makes rest seem almost impossible to achieve. Treatment approaches range from cognitive behavioral therapy specifically designed for insomnia to relaxation techniques, sleep hygiene improvements, and occasionally medications used cautiously under medical supervision. But insomnia serves as a stark reminder that sleep is fundamentally not a simple switch to be flipped on command, but rather a delicate rhythm that must be gently coaxed and cultivated. For those who suffer regularly, the night can feel endless and oppressive. Fact 55. Women report experiencing insomnia more frequently than men do. Across numerous scientific studies conducted in different countries and cultures, women consistently report higher rates of insomnia and sleep complaints compared to men. Multiple factors contribute to this striking gender gap. Hormonal cycles associated with menstruation, pregnancy, and menopause all exert significant influences on sleep patterns and quality, making rest more fragile and vulnerable at different life stages. Women also show statistically higher rates of anxiety and depression, 2 conditions that are tightly and bidirectionally linked to disrupted sleep. Yet important social and cultural factors play substantial roles as well. Women often shoulder disproportionate caregiving responsibilities for children, elderly parents, or sick family members, and face societal expectations that frequently cut into both the quantity and quality of rest they can obtain. The cumulative result is a pronounced gender disparity in reported sleep complaints and diagnosed insomnia. Interestingly, despite reporting more subjective sleep problems, women sometimes show fewer severe negative health consequences from equivalent sleep loss compared to men, suggesting possible subtle biological differences in resilience or compensation mechanisms. Still, the burden remains very real and consequential. Night after night, countless women lie awake staring at ceilings, caught in the intersection between biological factors and social circumstances. Fact 56. The record for the longest nap is unknown because nobody tracks it. We know with certainty who stayed awake the longest, as that record has been carefully documented and verified. But strangely and somewhat amusingly, no one has ever bothered to officially measure or record the opposite extreme, the world's longest nap. Sleep itself is notoriously difficult to define precisely in edge cases, and naps blur the conceptual boundaries even further. At what point does an exceptionally long nap simply become a short night's sleep instead? Does a medically induced coma count as an extended nap? What about natural hibernation in animals? Because of these ambiguities and definitional problems, no official record-keeping body tracks nap durations the way they meticulously document sleepless endurance marathons. Yet anecdotal stories abound of people falling asleep on long train journeys for many hours or drifting through entire lazy afternoons into evening without interruption. Perhaps naps inherently resist formal measurement and record-keeping because they belong to an entirely different conceptual category. They are spontaneous, unplanned, deeply personal moments of surrender. A nap is fundamentally not about competition, achievement, or record-breaking, but about yielding to the body's quiet request for rest. Fact 57. Some rare people naturally sleep only 4 hours per night and thrive. A remarkably rare group of individuals called natural short sleepers genuinely thrive on only 4 to 6 hours of sleep each night, without experiencing any apparent negative effects on health, mood, or cognitive function. Unlike the vast majority of people who would quickly crumble mentally and physically under such conditions, accumulating dangerous sleep debt, these unusual individuals seem to be genetically programmed for exceptional efficiency. Researchers have successfully identified specific mutations in certain genes, such as DEC2 and ADRB1, that fundamentally alter how the brain regulates the biological need for sleep. Short sleepers consistently wake feeling refreshed, alert, energetic, and fully functional, while others attempting the same schedule would feel absolutely wrecked within days. Their extreme rarity makes them scientifically fascinating, representing living proof that sleep need is not perfectly identical across all of humanity, but rather varies within a spectrum. Yet even for these genetically fortunate individuals, rest itself remains absolutely essential, just dramatically compressed in duration. They serve as reminders that biology can bend certain rules significantly, but it can never break them entirely or eliminate fundamental needs. Fact 58. Natural short sleepers often live surprisingly normal, healthy lives. What makes true natural short sleepers most remarkable is not merely their ability to function on dramatically reduced rest, but rather how entirely ordinary and unremarkable they appear in virtually every other respect. They successfully hold demanding jobs, maintain relationships, raise families, and pursue hobbies without any apparent unusual strain or difficulty. Many describe experiencing the sensation of having significantly more usable hours in their day compared to others, a kind of hidden gift of extra time that most people never receive. Some channel this additional waking time productively into creativity, learning new skills, or various forms of productivity. Others simply enjoy having more waking life to experience and savor. Despite their highly unusual sleep pattern, they show no consistent signs of worse health outcomes, higher disease rates, or shortened lifespan compared to normal sleepers. In fact, some preliminary studies even hint tentatively that they may age more gracefully on certain measures, though research remains ongoing and inconclusive. Importantly, this situation is entirely different from chronic sleep deprivation imposed on typical sleepers, which reliably harms nearly everyone who experiences it. Short sleepers are not heroically fighting against overwhelming fatigue or forcing themselves to stay awake through sheer willpower. They simply do not experience tiredness in the same way. Fact 59. Some people cannot stop falling asleep due to narcolepsy. Narcolepsy is a chronic neurological disorder that severely disrupts the brain's fundamental ability to properly regulate the boundaries between sleep and wakefulness. People living with narcolepsy may suddenly fall asleep during the middle of the day without warning, even during conversations, meals, work meetings, or other completely inappropriate situations. These involuntary sleep attacks are unpredictable, uncontrollable, and often deeply embarrassing or dangerous. Narcolepsy is also frequently associated with a condition called cataplexy, which involves sudden complete loss of muscle tone triggered by strong emotions like laughter, surprise, or excitement, causing the person to collapse while remaining conscious. Behind these symptoms lies dysfunction in the brain's regulation of hypocretin, also called orexin, a crucial neurochemical that helps stabilize wakefulness and prevent inappropriate transitions into sleep. For those living with narcolepsy, daily life becomes exhausting and uncertain as the normally clear boundaries between sleep and waking blur constantly and unpredictably. Treatments including medications and lifestyle adjustments exist and can significantly help manage symptoms, but no complete cure has yet been discovered. Narcolepsy serves as a powerful reminder that sleep is not merely a passive choice or simple habit, but rather an active, carefully orchestrated state that the brain must continuously and precisely regulate. Fact 60. People with narcolepsy can enter dreams almost instantly. One of the strangest and most diagnostically significant features of narcolepsy involves how remarkably quickly dreams can arrive after sleep onset. In most typical people, REM sleep and the associated vivid dreaming usually begins roughly 90 minutes after initially falling asleep. But individuals with narcolepsy can slip directly into REM within just minutes, sometimes even transitioning directly from full wakefulness into REM without passing through other sleep stages first. This means that dreams may overlap substantially with waking life, producing hallucinations so intensely vivid they feel completely real and indistinguishable from actual sensory experience. Someone with narcolepsy might close their eyes briefly and immediately find themselves transported into a fully formed dreamscape while still remaining partially aware of the real world around them. These experiences, called hypnagogic hallucinations when occurring while falling asleep or hypnopompic hallucinations when waking, can be profoundly disorienting and even frightening. They dramatically blur the usually clear distinction between reality and imagination, between sleeping and waking states. Yet they also provide uniquely valuable scientific insight into just how fragile and permeable those boundaries actually are for everyone. Fact 61. REM sleep behavior disorder makes people physically act out their dreams. Normally during REM sleep, the body enters a state of temporary muscle paralysis called atonia, which prevents us from physically moving and potentially acting out the often dramatic and active scenarios unfolding in our dreams. But in a condition called REM sleep behavior disorder, this critical protective safeguard fails completely. Dreamers may suddenly shout loudly, punch, kick violently, or even up and leap from bed, physically acting out the vivid scenes playing in their minds with no conscious control. Sometimes these movements become violent or dangerous enough to cause injuries either to the dreamer themselves or to sleeping partners sharing the bed. The disorder is relatively rare but scientifically fascinating because it reveals just how incredibly vivid, immersive, and realistic REM dreams actually are. Those who experience this disorder often clearly recall dreams of being chased by threatening figures, fighting off attackers, or fleeing from danger, with their physical bodies faithfully echoing and mirroring the imaginary struggle happening in the dream world. Fact 62. Sleep apnea interrupts breathing hundreds of times throughout the night. Sleep apnea is a potentially serious condition where breathing repeatedly stops and starts during sleep, often without the sleeper having any conscious awareness it is happening at all. In obstructive sleep apnea, the most common form, the airway physically collapses or becomes blocked, causing pauses in breathing that can last anywhere from several seconds to over a minute. The oxygen-deprived brain briefly wakes the body just enough to restart breathing, sometimes hundreds of times throughout a single night. These constant micro-awakenings completely shatter the continuity and quality of rest, leaving people profoundly exhausted despite technically spending long hours in bed. Severe untreated cases have been linked to serious cardiovascular problems including heart disease, stroke, and dangerously high blood pressure, as the nightly stress and repeated oxygen deprivation place enormous strain on the cardiovascular system over time. Treatments like CPAP machines, which use gentle air pressure to keep airways open throughout the night, can dramatically restore normal breathing patterns and sleep quality. For those affected, proper diagnosis and treatment can genuinely be life-changing, transforming chronically exhausted, foggy individuals back into alert, healthy people. Fact 63. Snoring can reach over 80 decibels in volume. Snoring is one of the most common and disruptive sleep disturbances affecting both the person who snores and anyone unfortunate enough to share sleeping space with them. Caused by vibrations in the relaxed soft tissues of the airway, as air passes through during breathing, snoring can be surprisingly and impressively loud. In extreme cases, snoring can reach volume levels exceeding 80 decibels, which is roughly comparable to the noise produced by heavy city traffic, a loud alarm clock, or a vacuum cleaner running at a close range. While occasional light snoring is often harmless and simply annoying, chronic loud snoring may signal underlying medical conditions like obstructive sleep apnea that require evaluation and treatment. For bed partners trying to sleep nearby, severe snoring can be disruptive enough to require earplugs, white noise machines, or even sleeping in completely separate rooms to get adequate rest. The humour and jokes that commonly surround snoring often mask its potential seriousness as both a social relationship problem and a health issue requiring attention. In some particularly dramatic cases, snoring becomes so thunderously loud it literally rattles walls, startles sleeping pets, and can be heard clearly through closed doors in other rooms. Fact 64. Elephants snore just like humans and other mammals. Snoring is definitely not a uniquely human quirk or problem. Elephants, with their massive bodies and correspondingly large airways, are also well known to snore during their brief periods of sleep. Audio recordings captured in zoos and wildlife sanctuaries document deep, rumbling snores echoing from these gentle giants as they rest lying down on their sides. Elephants naturally sleep only a few hours per day on average, making them among the shortest sleepers in the animal kingdom. But when they do finally settle down to rest, their snores can resonate like distant thunder rolling across the landscape. Observers and researchers describe the sound as both endearing and somewhat surreal, hearing the largest landed animals on Earth breathing so heavily they seem to shake the very ground beneath them. Snoring in elephants likely serves no particular purpose beyond being an unavoidable byproduct of relaxed muscles and tissues, partially obstructing airflow, just as in humans. But it beautifully connects us across vast evolutionary distances and species differences, from humans to dogs, cats and massive elephants. The noisy vibrations of rest remind us that sleep and its various quirks are truly universal biological phenomena. Fact 65. Sleeping in total darkness helps regulate your internal body clock. The human body's circadian rhythm, the internal biological clock that regulates sleep-wake cycles, is primarily guided and synchronized by exposure to light and darkness. Total darkness at night significantly helps keep this delicate clock properly aligned with the natural day-night cycle. Darkness triggers and stimulates the release of melatonin, the hormone that signals to the body that it is time for sleep and rest. Even surprisingly small amounts of artificial light from sources like street lamps outside windows, glowing phone screens, digital alarm clocks, or standby indicator lights on electronics can interfere with this process, suppressing melatonin production and disrupting the quality of rest. Over extended time, chronic light pollution and nighttime light exposure have been scientifically linked to insomnia, mood disorders, metabolic problems, and even increased cancer risk in some studies. This is precisely why sleep experts and physicians consistently recommend using blackout curtains, dimming or eliminating electronics from bedrooms, and keeping sleeping spaces as dark as reasonably possible. In complete darkness, the body naturally remembers and follows its ancient evolutionary rhythm, synchronizing with the primal cycles of planetary day and night that governed life for millions of years before artificial lighting. Fact 6. Light exposure at night significantly disrupts your sleep quality. Blue light wavelengths emitted by phones, tablets, computers, televisions, and even some LED lighting are particularly powerful at delaying sleep onset and reducing sleep quality. Blue light specifically suppresses melatonin production more effectively than other wavelengths, essentially tricking the brain into believing it is still daytime, which shifts the circadian rhythm progressively later over time. This physiological response makes falling asleep considerably harder, shortens total sleep duration, and measurably lowers the overall quality and restorative value of rest obtained. Even relatively dim light present in the bedroom environment during sleep can fragment rest, leading to more frequent awakenings and lighter, less restorative sleep stages. Studies conducted over recent decades have consistently shown that people regularly exposed to artificial light at night report significantly higher rates of insomnia, daytime fatigue, and mood disturbances. In evolutionary terms, human bodies and brains are fundamentally designed and optimized for natural sources of light like firelight, moonlight, and stars, not for the intense glow of rectangles held inches from faces. The clash between ancient biology evolved over millions of years, and modern technology developed in mere decades creates one of the greatest sleep challenges of our current age. Fact 67. People living near the poles adapt to months of continuous darkness and light. In the extreme Arctic and Antarctic regions near Earth's poles, the dramatic seasonal changes bring remarkable extremes that most humans never experience. There are months of nearly unbroken sunlight during summer, followed by months of near-total darkness during winter. Yet remarkably, people living permanently in these regions do adapt and find effective ways to regulate sleep cycles despite the complete absence of normal day-night cues from the sun. During the long summer when the sun never truly sets, blackout curtains become absolutely essential, and artificial routines and strict schedules help signal to the body when night should occur. During the endless winter darkness, specialized lamps that mimic natural daylight help maintain alertness, energy, and proper circadian rhythm alignment. Remarkably, long-term residents still manage to anchor and maintain their circadian rhythms reasonably well. though certainly not without considerable difficulty and conscious effort. Many residents report noticeable shifts in mood, energy levels, and sleep patterns directly tied to whether the sun is visible in the sky above or absent for months. These challenging adaptations demonstrate just how remarkably flexible and resilient the human body can be, successfully bending to environmental conditions far beyond what most people encounter or could easily imagine. Fact 68. Jet lag is your body clock struggling to adjust to new light patterns. When you travel rapidly across multiple time zones by airplane, your internal circadian rhythm inevitably lags behind, unable to immediately adjust to the new local time. Jet lag represents the uncomfortable mismatch between your biological internal clock and the new external environment you suddenly find yourself in. Common symptoms include persistent fatigue, difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep, irritability, difficulty concentrating, and even digestive issues as various body systems struggle to recalibrate. At its physiological core, jet lag is fundamentally the body struggling to recalibrate and resynchronize to completely new cycles of light and darkness. For every time zone crossed, it typically takes roughly one full day for the body to fully adjust and realign. Exposure to bright morning sunlight in the new location helps reset the internal clock more quickly, as does strategically avoiding bright light at times that would further confuse the adjustment. For astronauts living aboard the International Space Station orbiting Earth, jet lag becomes even stranger and more complex. The station experiences 16 complete sunrises and 16 complete sunsets during each 24-hour period as it rapidly orbits the planet. Fact 69. Astronauts sleep strapped into bags so they do not float away. In the weightless environment of space, sleep takes on surreal and almost alien qualities that Earth dwellers rarely consider. Without gravity providing any sense of up or down, astronauts obviously cannot simply lie down in a bed the way we do on Earth. There is fundamentally no down to lie toward. Instead, they sleep inside small cocoon-like sleeping bags that are carefully attached to the walls of their spacecraft or space station. Strapped securely into place, they float completely weightlessly inside, their bodies experiencing no pressure points whatsoever and fully supported in all directions simultaneously. This may initially sound wonderfully restful and comfortable, but astronauts consistently report that sleeping in space presents significant challenges and difficulties. Constant noise from life support machinery, unusual light cycles, and the profoundly disorienting lack of gravity all work together to disrupt normal circadian rhythms. Dreams experienced in space are often reported as particularly strange and unusual, seemingly shaped and influenced by the bizarre environment of weightlessness. Yet despite all these challenges, rest remains absolutely essential, as accumulated fatigue can severely compromise critical mission operations and astronaut safety. Fact 70. Sleep in space is lighter and more easily disrupted than on Earth. On Earth, gravity helps anchor and stabilize the rhythms and stages of sleep in ways we rarely consciously appreciate. Our bodies sink naturally into mattresses, weight pulling us downwards, providing a reliable physical signal of stillness and rest. But in space, there is no downward pull whatsoever. Astronauts float suspended in weightlessness, their bodies completely untethered, their internal biological clocks deeply confused by the rapid succession of sunrises and sunsets. Sleep in space typically becomes significantly shallower, more fragmented, and more fragile than on Earth. Constant noise from essential life support systems hums and whirs relentlessly, and temperature fluctuations can be extreme and uncomfortable. Even when strapped securely into sleeping bags attached to walls, astronauts frequently report serious difficulty reaching the deeper, more restorative stages of sleep. Scientific studies consistently show that astronauts average substantially less total sleep duration in space compared to on Earth, and their REM cycles are often measurably shorter and less complete. The result is persistent chronic fatigue that becomes a constant shadow they must carefully manage to avoid dangerous mistakes during complex operations. Fact 71. Dreams can be influenced by sounds occurring in the room. Our sleeping brains are not completely sealed off or isolated from the external world around us. External sounds occurring in the environment can slip into dreams and actively reshape their landscapes, narratives, and content in real time. A ringing phone may transform into a church bell within a dream. The gentle patter of rain outside may merge seamlessly into a dream story of walking through storms. Researchers deliberately use this phenomenon in controlled experiments called targeted memory reactivation where they play subtle sounds linked to specific tasks learned during the day. When the sleeping brain hears these associated sounds during sleep, it often strengthens and reinforces those particular memories more effectively, as though unconsciously rehearsing them more deeply. Beyond scientific laboratories, countless people have naturally experienced this phenomenon in their own lives. An alarm clock blaring may morph into a dream scenario before finally waking you. A partner's voice may enter and influence dream dialogue. Fact 72. Some people can control their dreams through dedicated practice. Lucid dreaming, the remarkable ability to recognize that you are dreaming while still remaining inside the dream itself, is not merely a rare accident or random occurrence. With proper training, dedication and practice, many people can learn to achieve lucidity regularly and reliably. Common techniques include performing reality checks throughout the day, repeatedly asking yourself whether you are currently awake or dreaming, and keeping a detailed dream journal to dramatically sharpen awareness of recurring dream signs and patterns. Over weeks and months of consistent practice, these daytime habits gradually bleed into the dream world itself, eventually creating breakthrough moments of sudden realization and recognition. This is not real. I am dreaming right now. From that pivotal point of awareness, lucid dreamers may fly freely through impossible landscapes, deliberately conjure specific places or people, explore fantastical worlds, or conduct experiments that would be impossible in waking reality. Scientific studies using sophisticated brain monitoring equipment have conclusively confirmed that lucid dreaming is objectively real and measurable, with lucid dreamers successfully signaling researchers by moving their eyes in pre-arranged specific patterns while remaining provably asleep. Beyond simple novelty and entertainment, some people productively use lucid dreams for serious purposes like confronting and resolving recurring nightmares, mentally practicing complex physical skills, or exploring deep creativity and artistic inspiration. Fact 73. Dream journaling makes dreams significantly easier to recall over time. Most people forget the vast majority of their dreams within mere minutes of waking, losing precious details and entire narratives. But keeping a dedicated dream journal, writing down even small fragments and impressions the very moment you awaken, dramatically and measurably improves recallability over time. The simple act of consistently recording dreams signals clearly to the brain that these experiences matter and deserve attention, which strengthens the neural pathways and memory processes involved in dream retention. Over weeks and months of dedicated practice, dreams gradually become clearer, richer, more detailed, and far more memorable. Journals also begin to reveal fascinating recurring themes, characters, locations, or symbols that repeat across many dreams, effectively turning the seemingly random chaos of dream life into a coherent map of the subconscious mind. Some dedicated lucid dreamers use detailed journaling as an essential foundation for their practice, training greater awareness by carefully studying patterns and identifying reliable dream signs. Others simply enjoy the process of rediscovering and reconnecting with the vivid, often bizarre landscapes of their own minds that would otherwise vanish completely. The discipline of journaling transforms fleeting whispers into a personal mythology, a nightly storybook written entirely by the brain itself. To keep a dream journal is to tell yourself clearly, I am listening carefully to what you create each night. And remarkably, in return, the mind typically offers more clarity, detail, and richness. A simple notebook kept on the bedside table becomes a doorway and bridge. Each page represents a permanent record of voyages and adventures that would otherwise vanish completely unless captured carefully at dawn. Fact 74. People forget up to 90% of their dream content. Dreams can feel incredibly vivid, meaningful, and unforgettable while they actively unfold during sleep. Yet within mere minutes of waking and returning to consciousness, most details slip away and vanish like morning mist. Scientists estimate that up to 90% of dream content is permanently lost and forgotten, disappearing almost immediately upon waking. The underlying reason lies in brain chemistry and neurological function. During sleep, levels of important neurotransmitters like norepinephrine, which critically support memory formation and consolidation, drop to unusually low levels. Without adequate amounts of these chemicals, experiences remain unanchored, ephemeral, and fragile. When we wake and consciousness returns, the delicate scaffolding supporting dream memories simply collapses, leaving behind only scattered fragments and vague impressions. Still, not everything is necessarily lost forever. With deliberate practice, such as keeping a dream journal, or consciously rehearsing and repeating dream memories immediately upon waking, recallability can improve substantially over time. What remains fascinating is the question of why such dramatic forgetting is so dominant and universal. Perhaps dreams are actually meant to be transient and temporary, serving their important functions of emotional processing and memory sorting without permanently cluttering conscious waking life with bizarre, often nonsensical content. Whatever the ultimate evolutionary reason, the massive loss adds immeasurably to their mystery and allure. Remembers are performances witnessed and experienced only once, fading and disappearing before the curtain has even fully come down. Fact 75. Dreams can sometimes solve real-world problems and inspire breakthroughs. Throughout recorded history, dreams have sparked remarkable insights, creative breakthroughs, and solutions to problems that completely eluded conscious effort. The chemist Auguste Kekle famously dreamed of a snake biting its own tail, a striking image that directly inspired his groundbreaking discovery of the ring-like molecular structure of benzene. Musicians, writers, inventors, and scientists alike have awakened with solutions to challenges that eluded them completely while awake. The phenomenon is not magic or mysticism, but rather reflects the brain's unique processing capabilities during sleep. Freed temporarily from the rigid constraints and linear patterns of waking logic, the sleeping mind recombines disparate fragments in novel, unexpected ways, making creative connections that conscious thought actively resists or overlooks. This is precisely why the timeless phrase "sleep on it" remains so enduring and universally understood across cultures. Sleep provides remarkably fertile ground for creativity, insight, and problem-solving. Even relatively small puzzles and challenges may mysteriously untangle overnight, with clear answers appearing suddenly and fully formed in the morning without conscious effort. Dreams remind us powerfully that the mind works tirelessly and productively, even during rest, never truly stopping. In its wandering narratives and bizarre scenarios, the dreaming mind sometimes hands us genuine treasures, elegant solutions wrapped in surreal stories, unexpected gifts we did not consciously know we were waiting to receive. Fact 76. Paul McCartney dreamed the melody for the song Yesterday. One of the most famous and beloved songs in musical history came directly from a dream. Paul McCartney of the Beatles awoke one morning with a complete melody fully formed and playing clearly in his head. He initially assumed he must have unconsciously remembered it from somewhere else, as it sounded so polished and perfect. After playing it for numerous other musicians and finding no match or recognition, he gradually realized it was genuinely original, created entirely by his sleeping mind. The song ultimately became Yesterday, one of the most recorded and covered tunes of all time, beloved across generations. McCartney described the experience as almost eerie and unsettling, feeling like a mysterious gift delivered from the unconscious mind. This famous story captures beautifully how dreams can sometimes bypass normal creative barriers and filters, offering pure creativity, unfiltered by doubt or self-criticism. It also echoes countless similar tales throughout history of art, literature, music, and scientific invention, born directly in sleep. Somewhere in the mysterious space between waking and dreaming, the mind occasionally reveals ideas that feel simultaneously deeply intimate and somehow universal, as if carried upward from a hidden place deep within. For McCartney, that hidden place gave the entire world a genuinely timeless song that continues resonating decades later. Fact 7. Mary Shelley's nightmare inspired the novel Frankenstein. In the year 1816, during a stormy night spent in Switzerland, a young woman named Mary Shelley experienced a vivid and haunting dream. She saw clearly a pale scientist kneeling anxiously beside the frightening creature he had painstakingly assembled from dead parts, watching as flickering life suddenly animated its grotesque form. The dream was so intensely vivid, disturbing and haunting that she felt compelled to transform it into written form, ultimately creating her groundbreaking novel Frankenstein. Shelley later described the dream as a waking nightmare, a powerful vision that came to her in the liminal twilight space between sleep and full consciousness. From that single moment of dream inspiration, an entire literary genre, science fiction, was effectively born, influencing countless writers, filmmakers, and thinkers for centuries. Her dream shows dramatically how nighttime imagination can see genuine revolutions in culture, art, and human thought. In the profound solitude of sleep, ideas beyond normal waking reach sometimes emerge. Occasionally monstrous, occasionally brilliant, often both simultaneously. Shelley's famous story reminds us compellingly that dreams are not merely idle illusions or random mental noise. They possess genuine creative power and can actively shape art, science, philosophy, and the stories humanity tells about itself for centuries to come. Fact 78. Your brain becomes more creative immediately after dreaming. Sleep does not merely preserve and protect existing memories passively. It actively reconfigures and reorganizes them in creative ways. During REM sleep, unexpected connections between seemingly completely unrelated ideas are strengthened and reinforced, making the brain measurably more flexible, inventive, and creative. Numerous studies consistently show that people who nap or experience REM sleep perform significantly better on creative problem-solving tasks compared to those who remain awake for equivalent time periods. After dreaming, we demonstrate improved ability at finding novel links, generating analogies, and creating original metaphors. It functions as if sleep thoroughly shuffles the mental deck of memory and experience, dealing familiar cards into completely unexpected and illuminating combinations. Artists, scientists, musicians, and writers have described sleep for centuries as uniquely fertile ground for inspiration and creative breakthroughs, and modern neuroscience now confirms and validates this ancient intuition. Dreams may not always deliver fully formed, polished works ready for presentation, but they consistently prime and prepare the mind for a greater originality and creative flexibility. To dream is to temporarily loosen the rigid, habitual grip of linear logic, letting imagination play freely without constraint. In that magical twilight state between consciousness and unconsciousness, creativity genuinely blooms and flourishes, and the mind wakes feeling refreshed, restored, and renewed, suddenly ready to see the familiar world through completely different, more creative eyes. Fact 79. Sleep deprivation causes serious emotional instability. When consistently deprived of adequate sleep over multiple nights, emotions become dramatically harder to control and regulate effectively. Studies clearly show that people denied sufficient REM sleep for several consecutive nights become markedly more irritable, anxious, emotionally fragile, and far less resilient when facing normal daily stresses. Their brains show pronounced hyperactivity in the amygdala, which processes fear and anger responses, while simultaneously the prefrontal cortex, which normally regulates and tempers those powerful feelings, loses significant influence and control. It functions as though the brain loses its emotional governor completely, leaving reactions raw, untempered, and disproportionate. Sleep appears to be the critical time when the mind carefully integrates and stabilizes emotions, weaving them thoughtfully into memory with considerably softer, more manageable edges. Without adequate sleep, feelings remain jagged, sharp, and overwhelming, difficult to process or contain. This clearly explains why chronic insomnia so often intensifies clinical depression and anxiety disorders, and why even a single night of good REM sleep can feel like a complete emotional reset. The lesson is unmistakably clear. REM sleep is not merely for dreaming and entertainment. It serves as essential emotional regulation and balance. In its prolonged absence, emotions drift dangerously untethered, becoming storms without any calming influence. With adequate REM sleep restored, the turbulent seas gradually grow gentler and more manageable, allowing us to face each new day with greater emotional stability. Fact 80. People deprived of REM sleep become measurably more aggressive. Sleep studies reveal a genuinely disturbing pattern that deserves serious attention. When REM sleep is consistently and deliberately blocked over multiple nights, subjects frequently grow noticeably more aggressive, hostile, and prone to conflict. Animals experimentally deprived of REM sleep lash out violently, fight more frequently with others, and show dramatically exaggerated territorial behaviors. Humans similarly become quicker to anger, far less patient with others, and significantly more prone to interpersonal conflict and arguments. This troubling effect likely stems from the brain's fundamental inability to properly process and regulate emotions without the nightly emotional integration that REM sleep provides. When feelings consistently fail to get properly sorted and softened during sleep, frustrations remain sharp, raw, and unsoftened by a perspective. Over extended time, this dangerous imbalance creates what researchers describe as a psychological short fuse, a hair-trigger temper ready to explode. In everyday life, this pattern explains why lack of adequate sleep makes people measurably more argumentative, more likely to snap suddenly at loved ones or colleagues over minor issues. The aggression is not merely bad mood or poor attitude. It represents genuine neurological dysfunction. Dreams, however strange and nonsensical they may seem, are definitely not frivolous or expendable. They function as essential medicine for the mind and emotions. Without them, the mind grows increasingly brittle, volatile, reactive, and ultimately unable to bear the normal accumulated weight of daily stress and frustration. Fact 81. Severe sleep loss can make you hallucinate vividly. After extended periods without any sleep, the normally clear line separating dreams from reality begins to blur dangerously. People deprived of rest for multiple consecutive days frequently report experiencing visual and auditory hallucinations, including flashing lights, phantom voices, shadowy figures, or strange distortions of familiar objects. The desperately exhausted brain, frantically seeking the REM sleep it has been denied, begins involuntarily projecting dreamlike imagery directly into waking conscious life. These hallucinations can become remarkably vivid, detailed, and even genuinely terrifying, closely resembling symptoms of psychosis. Memory falters badly, attention collapses completely, and the perception of reality itself feels increasingly unstable and unreliable. Some controlled experiments demonstrate that after just 72 consecutive hours without sleep, hallucinations become relatively common occurrences. This phenomenon reveals starkly how absolutely essential dreaming truly is for maintaining normal consciousness. Without regular opportunities to dream during sleep, the desperate mind eventually forces dream fragments and imagery into the waking world, whether we want them or not. It functions as if the brain insists absolutely on dreaming, treating it as non-negotiable. Even when systematically denied the proper chance during sleep, dreamlike experiences will intrude anyway. Hallucinations arising from extreme sleep loss serve as both warning and proof. Sleep is not optional or negotiable. It functions as an essential anchor holding consciousness steady and stable. Without it, reality itself gradually slips away, unraveling slowly into the strange, frightening visions characteristic of waking dreams. Fact 82. In ancient Rome, doctors prescribed sleep for nearly everything. For Roman physicians practicing medicine centuries ago, sleep was widely considered one of the most universal and reliable medicines available. Ancient medical texts consistently recommend prolonged rest for fevers, physical injuries, melancholy, and even common indigestion. Sleep was understood and valued as nature's own healer, a powerful restorative force that could restore proper balance to the body's humours. Patients were frequently advised to spend long hours resting in bed, sometimes in carefully arranged sleeping chambers specifically designed for maximum quiet and comfort. The underlying idea was elegantly simple. Give the body sufficient time and stillness, and it will heal itself naturally. While modern medicine has become far more precise, sophisticated, and targeted, the fundamental wisdom endures remarkably well. Sleep remains absolutely central to recovery and healing, whether from illness, physical injury, surgery, or psychological stress. The Romans lacked the sophisticated tools of modern neuroscience and lacked understanding of cellular biology, but they clearly observed the obvious empirical truth through careful attention. Patients who rested adequately and consistently recovered more quickly and completely than those who did not. Across many centuries and despite dramatic changes in medical understanding, the ancient advice still rings clearly and true. Sleep is not merely refuge or escape from discomfort. It represents genuine remedy and medicine. It remains an ancient prescription that requires no pharmacy, no apothecary, only the simple willingness to close your eyes and consciously surrender to rest. Fact 83. Some ancient cultures believed dreams were messages from God. From ancient Mesopotamia to Egypt to classical Greece and beyond, dreams were frequently viewed and treated as divine communication, rather than mere products of the sleeping mind. Kings, generals, and rulers regularly consulted specialized dream interpreters before making important military, political, or personal decisions, genuinely believing God sent warnings, prophecies, or guidance through nightly visions. Temples dedicated specifically to healing, such as the famous temples of Asclepius scattered throughout Greece, welcomed pilgrims and supplicants who slept inside sacred spaces, hoping desperately for prophetic dreams that would reveal miraculous cures for ailments. In countless cultures worldwide, dreams were regarded as more truthful, meaningful, and reliable than ordinary waking life, functioning as a privileged window directly into the spiritual realm beyond normal perception. Today, we naturally view and interpret dreams primarily through the lenses of psychology, neuroscience, and cognitive science rather than theology. But their ancient significance and sacred status remain deeply woven into myth, religion, and cultural memory across civilizations. Even now in modern times, many people still intuitively feel that certain particularly vivid dreams carry deeper meaning, echoing distant intuition, or perhaps messages from something beyond ordinary consciousness. Whether ultimately divine or neurological in origin, dreams still inherently hold a sacred aura for many people, functioning as an ancient bridge connecting the known everyday world with the mysterious unknown, a liminal space where God once whispered secrets to mortals through the strange symbolic language of sleep. Fact 84. Sleep strengthens learning in ways waking practice alone cannot achieve. Practicing any skill repeatedly while awake is obviously important and necessary, but consolidating that emerging skill during subsequent sleep is ultimately what makes it stick permanently. Musicians who diligently rehearse melodies, athletes who repeatedly train specific movements, and students who carefully study facts all consistently perform measurably better after a full night of quality sleep than after spending equivalent time awake. During sleep, especially during REM and deep slow-wave stages, the brain actively replays neural patterns, systematically reinforces specific pathways, and integrates brand new knowledge with existing memories and skills. This overnight enhancement and consolidation is something that waking practice alone simply cannot achieve, no matter how dedicated or prolonged. It explains clearly why cramming intensively without adequate rest so often fails spectacularly, and why creative or technical breakthroughs so frequently follow periods of sleep rather than continuous effort. The mind continues practicing diligently in the invisible background during sleep, steadily strengthening and refining connections until they become automatic second nature. Learning, then, is not only about conscious effort, focus, and repetition. It equally requires surrender and release, letting the brain take over completely in the stillness of night to perform its essential work. Sleep functions as the hidden teacher, the quiet patient coach, the unseen essential partner in every single act of mastery and skill development throughout life. Fact 85. Sleep helps babies learn language at an accelerated rate. In infants and young children, sleep plays an absolutely critical role in the extraordinary task of learning to understand and eventually produce language. During rest periods, babies' developing brains actively replay and rehearse the sounds, patterns, and rhythms they heard while awake, steadily reinforcing the neural circuits that link specific speech sounds to meaning and context. Studies clearly show that infants who nap shortly after hearing new words demonstrate significantly better recognition and retention of those words later compared to babies kept awake. Sleep seems especially important and powerful for this complex process, as it provides dedicated time to integrate sound patterns deeply into developing memory systems. In a very real sense, babies are practicing language acquisition in their dreams even long before they can speak their first recognizable words. The sheer overwhelming volume of new information they must absorb daily makes adequate sleep absolutely essential rather than optional. Without it, their rapidly developing brains would quickly become overwhelmed and unable to process incoming stimulation effectively. Parents often marvel at how remarkably quickly babies and toddlers pick up new words and language structures, but much of this seemingly magical work is actually happening invisibly during sleep. Fact 86. Adolescents who sleep more perform better academically in school. Teenagers are often unfairly stereotyped as lazy for sleeping late into the morning, but scientific research shows clearly that their growing bodies genuinely need more rest than adults do. Studies conducted across many schools consistently reveal that adolescents who get sufficient sleep perform measurably better academically, earning higher grades, showing improved attention and focus during classes, and demonstrating stronger memory retention. Sleep supports not only direct learning and information processing, but also emotional regulation and stress management, making it considerably easier to cope with academic pressure and navigate complex social challenges. Yet early school start times, often beginning before 8 in the morning, frequently rob teenagers of this essential biological resource, creating widespread chronic sleep deprivation across entire student populations. When schools have experimentally shifted their schedules to start later in the morning, the beneficial results appear immediately and dramatically. Better attendance rates, improved mood and mental health, fewer behavioral problems, and even fewer car accidents among young drivers who are no longer driving while dangerously drowsy. Sleep is not indulgence or laziness for adolescents navigating the challenging transition to adulthood. It functions as essential fuel for their rapidly developing brains and bodies. Their growing minds and changing bodies absolutely demand adequate rest. When society finally allows and supports them getting the sleep they biologically need, teenagers consistently thrive and flourish. Fact 87. Sleep dramatically improves athletic performance across all sports. For athletes at any level, from amateur to professional, sleep is equally as important as rigorous training and proper nutrition. During deep restorative rest, muscles repair damage from exertion, energy stores replenish completely, and physical coordination strengthens measurably. REM sleep specifically consolidates motor learning, refining and perfecting skills practiced during the day through invisible mental rehearsal. Research consistently shows that athletes who deliberately extend their sleep duration, intentionally adding extra hours beyond their normal routine, see measurable improvements across multiple performance metrics including speed, accuracy, reaction time, and endurance. Reaction times sharpen noticeably, injury risk decreases substantially, and recovery from intense training accelerates dramatically. Professional sports teams now actively monitor and prioritize sleep as an integral part of training regimens, fully recognizing its tremendous power to enhance competitive performance. Even amateur athletes engaged in recreational sports benefit significantly. A well-rested runner, swimmer, or cyclist will always perform better than a fatigued one, regardless of training volume or intensity. Sleep functions as the silent, invisible coach, working tirelessly in the background while athletes rest. Fact 88. Olympic athletes sometimes nap strategically before competing. At the absolute highest level of athletic competition, where the difference between winning gold and finishing fourth can be mere fractions of a second, every single detail matters tremendously, including strategic napping. Olympic athletes frequently take carefully timed naps shortly before major events to sharpen mental alertness and boost physical performance. These naps are usually kept relatively short, typically avoiding the deeper sleep stages to prevent post-sleep grogginess that could impair performance. The immediate benefits are substantial and measurable. Faster reaction times, steadier focus and concentration, calmer nerves, and reduced anxiety. In sports where fractions of seconds literally decide who wins medals and makes history, the difference between competing while fatigued versus feeling fresh and alert can mean absolutely everything. Athletes may nap in locker rooms, on team buses traveling to venues, or even in quiet corners of massive arenas. Coaches and sports scientists now treat strategic naps as valuable tools and weapons, integral parts of a broader comprehensive strategy around rest and recovery. The image of elite champions sleeping briefly before stepping onto the world stage to compete may initially seem strange or counterintuitive, but it powerfully underscores a simple fundamental truth. Sleep is not weakness, passivity, or wasted time. Fact 89. Elite chess players nap to refresh their mental strategy. Sleep is not merely about physical recovery and bodily restoration. It equally represents mental sharpening and cognitive enhancement. Elite chess players who must endure many hours of intense concentration during lengthy tournaments often nap strategically to refresh their exhausted minds between critical matches. These brief periods of rest restore mental focus dramatically, reduce calculation errors, and improve accurate recall of complex opening sequences and established strategies. In high-stakes championship games, a single miscalculation or oversight can prove absolutely devastating, and mounting mental fatigue becomes as dangerous an opponent as the skilled person sitting across the board. Strategic napping gives players a hidden but powerful edge, helping them sustain remarkable clarity and focus over grueling marathon matches lasting many hours. Studies consistently show that sleep measurably enhances problem-solving ability and creative thinking. both absolutely essential skills in chess, where positions simultaneously require both precise calculation and imaginative creativity. Fact 90. Long-distance truck drivers nap to stay safe on highways. For professional truck drivers navigating endless highways, sleep is not merely about comfort or convenience. It literally represents survival for themselves and everyone sharing the road. Long hours behind the wheel, seemingly endless monotonous highways, and demanding delivery schedules push drivers relentlessly into dangerous fatigue. Studies clearly demonstrate that drowsy driving dramatically slows reaction time, severely blurs judgment, and increases accident risk as much as alcohol intoxication. To actively counter this serious danger, professional drivers frequently rely on strategic naps during their routes. Even relatively short rest periods of 20 to 30 minutes can substantially restore alertness and dramatically reduce dangerous errors. In fact, transportation regulations in many countries legally require drivers to take scheduled mandatory rest periods, effectively treating adequate sleep as essential safety equipment comparable to brakes or headlights. A brief nap pulled over on the roadside may not look glamorous or impressive, but it can genuinely mean the difference between life and death for the driver and countless other travellers. Sleep becomes part of the vehicle itself, as absolutely essential as properly functioning brakes, working headlights, or adequate fuel. Fact 91. The siesta is an ancient human tradition with biological roots. Across Mediterranean and Latin cultures spanning centuries, the siesta, a midday nap or rest period, has endured as both practical necessity and cherished cultural tradition. Originally rooted in ancient agricultural life, it offered essential rest during the hottest and most unbearable hours when outdoor work in scorching sun became dangerous or impossible. Beyond climate and weather considerations, the siesta also aligns remarkably well with natural human biological rhythms that most people experience. Alertness naturally dips noticeably in the early afternoon for most individuals, making rest not merely cultural preference but biological wisdom. In Spain, Italy, Mexico, and countless other regions, the siesta was once nearly universal, a sacred pause woven deeply into the fabric of daily life and social expectation. Though modern work schedules and global capitalism have significantly eroded this practice in recent decades, contemporary research now strongly suggests its profound wisdom for health. Short afternoon naps measurably boost cardiovascular health, improve mood stability, and enhance productivity when people return to work. The siesta is definitely not laziness, inefficiency, or wasted time. It represents conscious alignment with the body's natural ebb and flow of energy throughout the day. Fact 92. Afternoon naps align perfectly with natural circadian rhythms. Every single day, most people experience a subtle but noticeable slump in energy and alertness during the early afternoon hours, typically between 1 and 3 o'clock. This predictable dip is not simply the result of eating lunch or consuming heavy food, it is actually built directly into the circadian rhythm itself, the internal biological clock governing sleep and wakefulness. The human body naturally creates two distinct windows of increased sleepiness during each 24-hour period. One major window occurs at night during normal sleeping hours, and a second smaller window appears consistently in mid-afternoon. In cultures where napping remains common and socially accepted, this natural biological lull is honoured and accommodated with scheduled rest. In cultures and workplaces where napping is discouraged or impossible, people instead fight through this period with caffeine, yawning, distraction, or sheer determination. Scientific research clearly shows that napping during this natural dip significantly improves memory consolidation, stabilizes mood, and restores alertness effectively. The human body asks for rest twice daily, not once. This rhythm remains clearly visible in young children who nap instinctively without being taught. Fact 93. Humans may naturally be biphasic sleepers throughout history. Today we automatically assume that a single long consolidated night of sleep represents the normal natural human pattern, but historical records and anthropological research strongly suggest that humans may actually be naturally biphasic sleepers, meaning sleeping in two distinct separate segments. Many traditional societies still practice segmented sleep patterns, with a main rest period at night and a shorter nap during the day. Historical records from pre-industrial Europe frequently describe first sleep and second sleep, two separate sleep periods naturally separated by an hour or more of quiet wakefulness around midnight. People commonly use this wakeful interval to pray, converse quietly with family, reflect peacefully, or engage in intimacy before drifting back to sleep. The industrial age deliberately compressed this natural pattern into one solid block to match rigid factory schedules and maximize productivity. Yet the body's natural dips in alertness at night and again in the afternoon strongly hint that biphasic rest represents our ancestral evolutionary rhythm. Perhaps what modern medicine sometimes labels as insomnia is occasionally just biology remembering and attempting to follow its original pattern. Fact 94. Our ancestors probably slept in 2 long shifts before electricity. Before the invention and widespread adoption of artificial electric lighting, human sleep in pre-industrial societies often naturally unfolded in 2 distinct stages. Historical diaries, court records, legal documents, and literature frequently mention a first sleep taken shortly after dusk, followed by a period of wakefulness around midnight, then a second sleep continuing until dawn. During this middle-of-the-night wakeful interval, people commonly prayed, visited neighbours, engaged in quiet conversation, tended fires, or even conceived children. It was not considered unusual, abnormal, or problematic, but simply a normal, accepted part of nighttime life. Artificial electric lighting fundamentally disrupted this ancient rhythm, pushing bedtime progressively later and compressing rest into a single consolidated block. However, the pattern remains visible in controlled experiments where people live without artificial light. Many participants naturally revert to biphasic sleep patterns without any instruction. This strongly suggests our ancestors lived with nights naturally divided into segments, with each half of sleep potentially serving different biological functions. Perhaps first sleep prioritized physical restoration, while second sleep deepened emotional processing and dreaming. Fact 95. Dreams often reflect what you did during the day. Psychologists call this phenomenon the day residue effect, where dreams frequently weave in recognizable fragments of recent waking life, especially from the previous 24 hours. A song you heard, a conversation you had, a place you walked through, or a person you encountered. These details reappear in dreams, sometimes transformed and distorted, sometimes nearly unchanged. The brain appears to be actively integrating new memories and experiences into its vast existing network, carefully deciding what information to keep permanently and what to discard. Dreams are definitely not perfect mirrors or exact replays of waking life, though. They constantly remix, exaggerate, condense, or distort reality, turning mundane everyday experiences into surreal adventures. A simple routine task may transform into an epic adventure. A brief casual meeting may become a dramatic emotional encounter filled with significance. Fact 96. Sleep stabilizes your emotional experiences over time. Strong emotions can feel absolutely overwhelming and unbearable in the immediate moment, but sleep helps smooth and integrate them into manageable stability. During REM sleep, the brain actively replays emotional events and experiences while stress chemicals remain at their lowest levels, allowing feelings to be processed thoroughly without causing re-traumatization. The result is a gentle softening and reframing that makes the next day considerably more bearable and manageable. People who sleep adequately after distressing experiences consistently report calmer moods and better coping, while those systematically deprived of sleep remain emotionally raw, reactive, and unstable. It functions as if sleep provides an emotional cushion or buffer, absorbing the sharp, painful edges of difficult memories. This process clearly explains why therapy and counseling often emphasize adequate rest, and why chronic sleeplessness so dramatically worsens clinical depression and anxiety. Fact 97. People deprived of sleep become riskier decision-makers. Sleep deprivation alters not only mood and emotional stability, but also fundamental judgment and decision-making ability. Studies consistently show that tired people become significantly more likely to take unnecessary risks, gamble impulsively, or completely ignore obvious negative consequences. Brain imaging scans reveal exactly why this happens. The prefrontal cortex, which carefully weighs outcomes and considers consequences, weakens substantially, while reward centers remain highly active and responsive. The result is a mind hungry for immediate gain but effectively blind to danger and long-term costs. This explains clearly why fatigue contributes so heavily to accidents, serious financial mistakes, and reckless behavior across contexts. It is not simply slower thinking or delayed reactions. It represents fundamentally skewed calculation and impaired judgment. Sleep loss literally turns rational choices into dangerous gambles, transforming the world into a casino where poor judgment runs unchecked. This effect is so powerful and well documented that military leaders and corporate executives are explicitly warned against making critical decisions while sleep-deprived, equating the impairment directly with intoxication. Fact 98. Sleep-deprived people laugh more at jokes, even unfunny ones. Interestingly, sleep loss does not only sharpen irritability and negative emotions, it also paradoxically makes people significantly more likely to laugh, even at things that are not especially funny or clever. Studies suggest that accumulated fatigue increases emotional reactivity in all directions simultaneously, amplifying both frustration and amusement unpredictably. Sleep-deprived brains show exaggerated responses to humor stimuli, as if the threshold for laughter drops substantially lower than normal. This pattern may explain why late-night exhaustion often brings uncontrollable bouts of giggles, the phenomenon sometimes called midnight sillies. Groups of tired friends laugh uncontrollably at complete nonsense, not because it is truly hilarious, but because their brains have lost proper calibration and proportion. The phenomenon reveals clearly how sleep stabilizes emotional responses, keeping reactions appropriately proportionate to stimuli. Without adequate sleep, feelings grow wild and unchecked in unpredictable ways. Fact 98. Your heartbeat slows dramatically during deep sleep stages. During deep slow-wave sleep, the body enters one of its most restful and restorative physiological states. Heart rate slows significantly, sometimes by 20 to 30% compared to normal waking rates. Blood pressure drops measurably, circulation steadies and regularizes, and the entire cardiovascular system finally recovers from the accumulated strain of the day. This nightly pause is absolutely crucial for long-term health. Studies consistently show that people chronically deprived of deep sleep face substantially higher risks of hypertension, heart disease, and stroke. The slowing heartbeat represents more than simple relaxation or reduced activity. It functions as genuine therapy, a built-in biological mechanism for cardiovascular repair. Athletes, patients recovering from illness, and workers alike depend heavily on this process, whether they consciously realize it or not. Fact 100. Body temperature drops noticeably when you fall asleep. As sleep approaches and the body prepares for rest, core body temperature drops by 1 to 2 degrees Fahrenheit, sending a clear signal to the brain that it is time to rest. This cooling is carefully orchestrated by the circadian rhythm, which lowers metabolism and dilates blood vessels in the skin, releasing accumulated heat into the environment. This process is so fundamentally important that people who struggle with chronic insomnia often show disrupted temperature regulation patterns. Simple interventions like taking a warm bath before bed can help by drawing heat temporarily to the skin surface, allowing the body to cool afterward more effectively and slip more easily into sleep. The nightly cooling is not just comfort or preference. It represents essential biology's way of ensuring proper rest. In evolutionary terms, cooler nights likely reinforce this cycle naturally, binding sleep tightly to the gradual fall of temperature accompanying darkness. To fall asleep is in part to surrender accumulated warmth, to let the body drift gently into the calm of lower temperature, like slipping peacefully into evening itself. This simple temperature shift, barely noticeable consciously, represents one of countless invisible signals guiding us nightly into the mysterious world of sleep.